Yeah, Senator, last 6.5 years, the Bush administration has invested.
I'll repeat the question.
The last 6.5 years, the Bush administration has invested tens of billions of dollars in oil, coal, and other renewable energy sources. But yet, our dependence on oil has increased, and our emissions, global warming emissions, has also increased. What do you think of the Bush administration's energy policy, and what are two things that you might do differently?
The question was, Bush has invested tens of billions of dollars over his tenure in coal and oil exploration. That's been the essence of his policy. What do I think about the Bush policy? What would I do differently? I think the Bush policy stinks. I think the Bush policy has been a disaster. The Bush policy has been a single policy of trying to figure out, looking to the oil companies of the world to find our way out of this dilemma, when in fact, as a consequence of that, all you're doing is digging yourself deeper in a hole. The answer to out of our dilemma, both as it relates to independence, flexibility, and global warming, is to move away from fossil fuel, not toward more fossil fuel. That's number one. Number two, this administration has been Orwellian in the way in which it has dealt with environmental laws and international treaties. This administration has redefined the Clean Skies Act, which they say means the way you get cleaner skies is you allow the utilities in America to continue to pollute without having to be held accountable for laws we passed earlier that said they have to use the newest, most modern technology in order to be able to expand. We should be capping carbon emissions, not allowing them to be expanded without any new technology, which is what the Bush policy is. It's kind of like their policy on torture. These guys went in, and the reason I voted against and argued against and called for the first person to call for the resignation of the Attorney General is that this is a guy who allowed the president, by way of the most incredible bit of intellectual jiu-jitsu, to say that within the treaties that we signed on, the Geneva Accords, the Geneva Conventions, that in fact there is no such thing as not torture unless you cause organ failure or death. That's literally the problem. Well, that, I would make a parallel between how they deal with that and how they dealt with the environment. Ladies and gentlemen, there's so much to say about the environment, but to answer the direct question about Bush, not about what I would do at this moment, ladies and gentlemen, think about it. This is one of the, imagine had you been president the last 7 years. Can you possibly have thought that any president, would you have even contemplated that you would invest 70% less money in research for alternative fuels in the last 7 years than was invested those 7 years before?